We should be celebrating, I said. This was one of the best ERP projects that I've seen. Joe replied, "It did go well, Phil, and I love celebrating wins. But there's no joy in Mudville. Everyone is tired, cranky, and the users just want to attempt to get back near the efficiencies they had with the old system." Hi everyone, I'm Phil Coerper, Managing Director of Ringling Business Solutions. In this episode of the CEO's Field Manual, we'll cover the best and worst of ERP implementations and why both end with a thud. ERP upgrades are among the most challenging IT investments you can make, and ERP customer satisfaction stats are horrible. Some of these issues are expectations, some are how ERP is often oversold, and some execution. But ERP continues to be the black sheep family member of IT projects. There are many ERP content sources you have probably watched or read. What makes this episode unique is we are going to look at real-world examples of the good, the bad, and the ugly implementations, and how we can benefit from lessons, but also set realistic expectations in the first place on the ERP projects we do. So let's jump in. We'll start with an ERP project that went well. The client was a construction company with multiple entities. The largest entity was using a legacy version of Sage 300 for ERP. The second largest entity was recently acquired and was still on QuickBooks and spreadsheets for project support. Doug, the CEO, saw continued growth coming, including more acquisitions. He knew they had outgrown Sage, and the more pressing need, though, was the new entity had completely outgrown QuickBooks. Why put them on Sage 300 just to then change again when the rest of the company upgrades, Doug said in our initial meeting. Let's do a company-wide ERP upgrade with our future in mind. Ringling Business Solutions was engaged to assess the options and help with the implementation. Several things occurred here that helped drive success. First, high engagement of executive management, in this case, the CEO. Doug was very hands-on and software upgrade experienced. He was going to be highly involved and ready to make timely decisions. We'll come back to decision making several times in this episode. In my view, it's a topic not highlighted nearly enough in the ERP space. Secondly, the company fielded a great core implementation team. The core team also had outstanding chemistry and were software upgrade experienced as well. The company had a small IT function for its size, so this core team was used to implementing software that could be complex and included API integrations to the other systems. Operational support pros with software project chops? Perfect. This team turned out to make a huge difference throughout the project. They were also willing to take countering views. At the end of the selection process, when we were honing in on the best ERP solution, Ann, a support manager who was the go-to expert for Sage, said to the group with Doug in the room, "I'm still not sure why we're going off Sage in the first place. I just don't see this is going to be that much better." Doug provided excellent balance, responding, "Tell us more, Ann. What are the specific concerns you have with the new ERP?" This prompted a valuable discussion on why we were doing this, what the risks were, and an honest assessment of how it would go and the opportunities. Ann ended up being a key driver for success of the new system. And that's when culture is really fantastic. Doug gave voice, consideration, a decision, and then we all jumped in behind the play called to drive a win. A masterclass in leadership. A third driver of success here was allowing the time for evaluation and selection of the best ERP solution. When we first engaged, an upgrade to Sage Intacct seemed like the likely choice. We decided on a 2 to 3 quarter selection process where we would fully assess other options to ensure we made an informed decision. If Intacct was the best, all good. We would have great comparisons to confirm that decision. Better options than the incumbent became obvious though, and ultimately the team chose an ERP that was vertically built for the construction business. Now, a vertical is not always the best choice for companies, especially if your workflows require a lot of customization in the ERP. If, and this is a big if the workflows in the vertical ERP align with what you want, it can be a much easier lift to implement. Now, you may lose some customization options, but you also can pick up some industry best practices along the way. Finally, the team decided to stage the implementation with newly acquired company going first, and the others to follow about 6 months or so after that go live. There are certainly pros and cons to this, but in my view, if you can stage ERP, it can really pay off. So much is learned in the first stage that benefits the future stages. It just makes everything go better. In the end, though, the team is what mattered the most. They were knowledgeable and fully engaged throughout the project. The ERP was implemented pretty much on time and without business disruptions or cost overruns. Yet, like the opening of the episode, in the end, they were exhausted and frankly sick of ERP implementation. They now would have months of efficiency work to gain back the ease of users' operation within the new system. The users appreciated the team's support, but few flowers were sent. A great success, but not a great celebration. More like relief. Jane, a core team member, said it best. The end of many large projects always feels like a letdown that it's over. So much stimulus for so long, and then, what do I do now? With ERP, you don't so much have, what do I do now, but how do we get back to business? The second case is an ERP implementation that went poorly. Contrasting from the first case, this company had a more traditional executive leadership team that made the big decisions but tended to delegate implementation. Now, this can be a great way to run a company, just not always great for ERP. The IT department was also larger and more accustomed to owning the implementation of IT upgrades. This was also their first ERP project. Centralized IT project management is also a great way to run many IT projects, but ERP is a different animal. The selection process was limited to 2 enterprise-level ERP solutions, and there was immediate time pressure to make a choice and expedite the project. Once the project was off and running, the subject matter experts, or SMEs, were assigned to lead various implementation teams. Now, this sounded good and turned out to be okay, but then there were some problems. Yes, these folks knew how the processes in the old system work, but they were often resistant to new process flows. This resulted in 2 challenges. First, there were missed opportunities that the new system offered some better process options that were not pursued. Secondly, it drove more complexity to customize the new system around the old workflows. John, the SME from the purchasing and planning area, said something in a meeting that was telling. We spent years optimizing these workflows, he said. The new ERP has to align with our business requirements. Now, there was some pushback from Alan, the SI, who said, yes, John, we get that, but this workflow represents the best practices from hundreds of companies that use this enterprise ERP. John's reply, that's all well and good, but our business is unique. The our business is unique mentality always leads to more complexity and heavier implementation. The hidden secret is it also leads to much higher long-term maintenance and cost of ownership. Because of cultural norms at the company, the senior executives tended to side with the SME's decisions, even as it made the project more and more complex. The enterprise-level ERP could support complex processes, of course, but that did not make it a good idea. Finally, the sense of urgency in the selection process carried forward into implementation. Initially, a staged implementation for the different entities was planned, like in the first case study. As the discovery process unfolded, though, the workarounds for separate entities on differing ERPs, plus the time to get through all the stages, led to a change where everything would go live at once. Having a single go live for all entities is also referred to as a Big Bang approach. It can deserve this term both in the positive and negative connotation. The team was confident before go live and planned for a celebration a few weeks after to recognize the achievement. Unfortunately, the go live resulted in some highly difficult business interruptions, leading to over a year of cleanup. They finally came out on the other side, but it was extremely costly. The decision-making and resulting high complexity of the new system resulted in years of rework and optimizations. No celebrations here for sure. A third example is in the middle. A solid plan for implementation, but very bumpy for the year-plus following go-live. Again, some comparisons. This ERP project had a good selection process, a strong core implementation team, and strong, engaged leadership from the top executives. Check, check, check. The project plan timing was reasonable, but the team struggled to keep the customizations to a minimum. This is a very hard component of ERP. The new ERP packages are powerful, and the SI or seller of the software is proud of the capabilities and tends to oversell the clients. You've likely been at ERP demos where the sales team shows us anything is possible. Can it support this order-to-cash workflow, we may ask? Of course, the salesman says. Our ERP can do damn near anything. Is that out of the box, we follow up? It's a simple customization, no problem, I'm sure. Trap ahead, beware. It's understandable to go for as much capability as possible, even if a more simplified process flow or ERP methodology would deliver, let's say, 90% of the requirement. In my experience, the simpler 90% solution will pay off just about every time. This project went on schedule and on budget. The go-live was relatively smooth as well. So where's the celebration? Like the opening, it was going to take months, if not more, to gain back efficiencies. And in several cases, they had to unwind the complexity of the new ERP. It had gotten just too difficult to maintain. The team was grateful it went well, but quickly refocused on the challenges it also brought. I called Joe several months later to check in on the team. How's life in Mudville, Joe? Better, he said. We're back to full speed ahead running the business. So maybe no immediate joy, but there are some great lessons. Let's start with what I think is the largest challenge when working with clients on ERPs. Most executive leaders, me included, get things done by pushing for action and result. One of the reasons we are a CEO in the first place is we do not take "we can't" as a response. In a previous episode, I called better, cheaper, faster as a tool in the CEO's toolbox. ERP is the exception that proves the rule, though. Of particular concern is the newer AI-native ERP products that claim a key advantage is much faster implementation. Yes, the ease of implementation and reporting have great potential with these new programs. And in a simpler, smaller business model, they can be just fine. But ERP is a massive change initiative. If you are buying a product to save implementation time, I challenge if that is one of the most critical goals. My encouragement is to be disciplined and deliberate, from selection, discovery, planning, execution, go-live, and post-go-live. A full life cycle for ERP is measured in years, and go-live is a milestone, not a destination. Finally, decision-making on ERP is a critical component for success. Decisions need to be made quickly and timely, but also made at the appropriate leadership level. Even a tactical decision can have large strategic impacts. This dichotomy of empowering the SMEs and managers while having strategic oversight on decisions, plus the added issue that even large decisions need to be made quickly in ERP, is a difficult but critical component to manage. My best advice here, give enough time for decision review and empower a core group who drives the stated goals of the project. If a core goal is minimize customizations, for example, empower the decision makers to deliver that goal even in a case that it delivers less than 100% of what is wanted by the managers or SMEs. This is a second episode where I provided some learning on ERP. The first one is titled, My First Advice on ERP, Don't Do It. Tongue in cheek, but what is clear is if or when you are addressing an upgrade here, there are many pitfalls. Be sure the why we are doing this is stronger than the headwinds ERP brings. And if you don't miss on these core ERP issues we've covered, you'll have a good project outcome. In the end, though, the team will likely be more relieved than happy. That's just how ERP goes. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the CEO's Field Manual. In our next episode, we'll cover a merger that was supposed to be 1 + 1 = 3, but it ended up being 1 + 1 = less than 2. We'll see you then. Thanks, everybody. Please subscribe, and we'll see you at a future video.